Just walking in,
Yeah. So,
shaking hands.
and yeah, when we start, they can probably hear us on LinkedIn Live now already, and we'll cut this part out when we do the replay. We can cut some of this out. But yeah, we'll just start. I'll introduce you. I'm going to read just like the little bio that you sent for the conference that you were a speaker at.
Okay.
It's just it's
I
like
saw the picture. I was like, my hair, that's like such an old hair picture.
I that one on.
Let me go back to the thing.
We're just waiting for Joe to tell us. So there's just a slight lag between when we start here and then when it goes live on LinkedIn. Okay, well then let's go ahead and get started. Does that sound good for you, Theresa?
Sure. Love it.
Okay. Let me get everything set up, everything in the right spot. Welcome everyone. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm just making sure we have everything in the correct place. And the producer said, yep, ready to go. So welcome to Live with Leah on this Talent Tuesday. This is the LinkedIn Live show where we talk about all things talent acquisition. Thank you for joining us today. This is the 8th episode on the 8th day of December. So please hit the like button down below. And also in the comments, drop in a line, tell Theresa hello and welcome her, and let us know where you're logging in from today. We would love to hear from you. And then also, if you have any specific questions you'd like to hear from Theresa, please put those in the comments below. So welcome, Theresa Mazzaro for, oh, go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and introduce you. So Theresa has been an RN for 28 years and in healthcare recruiting for over 15. She retired from the Air Force Reserves in 2006 and currently manages an amazing recruitment team for Suburban Hospital, a member of Johns Hopkins Medicine. And she is also the president-elect of NAHCR, which is the National Association of Healthcare Recruitment. So welcome again. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
I'm excited to have you here. And they say that we are live on LinkedIn, so we can continue going on.
I love it. Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay.
Although I'm gonna roast you a little bit. I was looking at the picture that you posted with like this long hair. I was like, so many hairstyles ago.
I know. I used to have super short hair too, and now like my hair is like extremely, extremely long. And whenever I do stuff, I'm like, oh, that's a really old picture. But if you like that one better, go ahead. So you said that you changed your hair recently?
Well, so nobody's traveling, right?
Oh, right.
Shouldn't be traveling. But my husband and I have a planned trip in May. Now, okay, if you know anything about nurses, in particular recruiters, we are sometimes a little OCD. Sometimes we like to plan ahead, like to have all of our ducks in a row. So we're going to Morocco. Part of this trip is going to be sleeping in a Bedouin tent in the Sahara Desert. And I thought, I don't want a hairstyle that I have to fuss with. So I decided 6 months ahead of time to go out and get a perm and cut my hair short so I could literally just get up and go.
I used to have super short hair too.
6 months ahead of time. We'll see if I like this over the next few months. And then hopefully in May, when their world might be somewhat back to normal.
Yes.
We'll be rocking and rolling. So that's,
okay.
Even when I get my hair done, it's with purpose. There's a plan.
That is super exciting because that's definitely, wow, like Morocco. Whoa. What made you decide on Morocco?
It's the food, the flavors, the sights. I think that I don't know how many people are out there doing this, but in the world where you can't travel and you love to travel, I subscribe to every travel blog out there.
Me too. I had no idea that you did.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
So I actually am an aspiring travel blogger. Like, I mean, not really. I'm not trying to go out there and be a real blogger, I guess, because I have a day job. But no, I love traveling. My partner and I, we travel, we try to travel every month and we go somewhere international. We don't have kids. So this is, we're like, let's go do whatever we can. And, we go on a lot of international trips and I am super OCD like you. I actually plan out a spreadsheet. I go through and look at all of the time off, and like he has a pretty cool schedule where he can take every other Friday off. So
Nice.
I'll plan long trips around where we can maximize our PTO time.
Of
You know,
course.
and I plan out the entire year of trips. And so I've
Absolutely.
been doing the same thing. And I
Yeah.
didn't start until so like July 2021 is when our trips start for next year.
Okay, well, that's probably safer, but I'm okay with it because we use points, miles, everything that you could
Oh,
imagine.
me too. Or
Spots round
do you
trip.
follow the points guy?
Oh yeah, we're gonna do, so it's 2 weeks in Morocco, then 3 nights in Amsterdam, staying at the Hilton at the Waldorf Astoria. So all,
Oh my gosh, you're going to Amsterdam first?
no, after.
Oh my gosh. Okay. We just did that. We did that a couple of years ago. So that, oh my gosh. I'm so excited to hear about this. Well, we have a
Yeah.
bunch of people that have logged in. Kim is logged in from Massachusetts. Thank you for joining us. Joanna says, wow, Morocco sounds amazing. Patty Witt says, I can hear but not see. Is it just me? Uh-oh. Well, I think, no, Patty, I mean, I'm looking at another screen and it looks like um, we can see. So if you want to just refresh that screen, I'm sure that you can see. Wow, that is amazing. I'm so happy we started like that. And what a cool like idea to get your hair done so that you don't have to worry about it.
My husband's like, yeah, of course you're preparing for May. I'm
I
like,
will tell you, so I have been to a Bedouin village in the Maghreb region in Tunisia, and I have stayed in like a tent. It was pretty glamping. I mean, it was
glamping.
really
Yeah.
nice. There was
Yeah.
like air conditioning and whatnot. So I'm so excited. The food is amazing. You're gonna
Yeah.
love it. May is like a beautiful time of year in that region. You're gonna have a great time.
It'll be fantastic. It'll be fabulous. And hopefully it'll have whatever the right hairstyle is. I will have it ready.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I have this day job.
Yeah, I know, right? Our day jobs. Well, let's talk about our day jobs then. So
Whew.
before we get into the full interview and me asking you a lot more questions, what I wanted you to do was kind of introduce yourself to the audience a little bit more,
Sure.
explain about your position at Suburban Hospital,
Sure.
and then also talk a little bit about NAHCR and your position with NAHCR.
Absolutely. So, for any of you who are nurses who are aspiring to do something outside of the bedside, stick with nursing for now. But I will tell you, as a nurse, I've been, like I said, a nurse almost 29 years, which is amazing. I couldn't believe how easy healthcare recruiting came to me. Now, there was a crooked path that got there, but I'd gone into some sales, worked for a biotech company. But I think what I do now, so I think of healthcare recruitment like this: as a nurse taking care of patients, I think that taking care of patients, I'm affecting one life at a time. And I did that for many years. I was a critical care nurse, I was a hospice nurse, I was a flight nurse in the military. But as a healthcare recruiter, when you hire amazing people, you affect thousands of lives.
Mhm.
So it's a wonderful thing for us here at Suburban. So we're one of the small community hospitals that's part of the Johns Hopkins healthcare system. So everybody thinks of Hopkins, they think of the mothership, as we call it, Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, and really Baltimore focused. But there's a lot of other hospitals out there, and we're one of them. We're actually right outside of Washington, D.C. We have a sister hospital, Sibley Memorial, which is like
Okay.
literally just a stone's throw from us, that is in Washington, D.C. And we are geographically right across the street from NIH. And I say you go three roads and you've got literally three hospitals. So you've got Suburban, NIH, and then Walter Reed Navy Medical.
Wow.
That's
I had
important.
no idea that's where you were located so
Oh
close.
yeah, we're in Bethesda, Maryland, and it's a 230 bed hospital. But I will tell you, it's amazing. We have the most amazing leader. We have a chief nursing officer who's also our interim president. Her name is Leah Rose Ramsey. And, besides the crisis,
Mhm.
skip the pandemic for a minute. In normal times, like I have never felt, and I've worked in a lot of healthcare institutions over my many years, I've never felt like a family. Like it's a tangible feeling of warmth and kindness, and people really care. And I know people are, some people are like, well, whatever, that's not true at every hospital. And it might not be. And it might not be true in every unit. But I work with so many people here at this hospital and doing my hiring for nurses and for other positions outside of nursing, that I feel like everybody just cares. They really care about what they do. We had an emergency department physician whose parents both worked here, right? and now he's a physician here. And what did he say? It was, we were dedicating our new building in January pre-COVID. And he was like, I bleed suburban hospital blue. And I thought, oh,
Wow.
cool. So I have this really amazing team, 2 great recruiters, 2 coordinators, but I'm also part of this bigger team within Hopkins. So we've got wonderful Johns Hopkins healthcare system that a lot of people are familiar with, like I said, maybe not necessarily the small hospitals, but that's okay. We're all part of the same system. And a group of really amazing professionals. I mean, we're all out there trying to hire the very best, super competitive market. I don't actually think in this area, we don't have one of those hospitals where you're the only hospital in town.
Okay.
Into more rural areas of the country, you've got some of these smaller hospitals where if you want to be a nurse and you want to live near here, this is where you're going to work.
Where I'm from, it's very much like that. Yes.
Yeah. So for us, it's more like, no, there's 50 other hospitals that you can choose from in Virginia, DC, and Maryland, and they're all right there.
Right.
So it's like, how do you differentiate yourself? And I think that when people walk through the door, and from the minute they apply, actually, we cultivate kind of that candidate experience for them. And
Wow.
it's not like we're promising or selling something that we can't deliver on. And that's the beauty of what we do here at Suburban, is delivering on that, the promise of feeling like you are cared for and you will be cared for. So that's what I do here at Suburban.
Okay.
And then of course, being part of NAHCR, the National Association of Healthcare Recruiters, small, very boutique association, if you will, probably less than 600 people are members right now. It's open to all healthcare recruiters. Doesn't matter what you recruit for within healthcare. It could be IT in healthcare, but if you're a healthcare recruiter, you can join. We recently actually just had some folks that work in retail space recruiting for pharmacies, retail pharmacies.
Oh, okay. Like the convenient care pharmacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Or like Walmart pharmacy, right? So they could be members too. So our whole existence is about bringing best practices through education, through networking, through having subject matter experts like Rollis, partner with us, like having other vendors that bring tools and technology to us. And I don't know if people realize this, healthcare recruiting, let's see, we tend to be slightly behind the technology curve. I'm just going to say that ever so nicely.
That was a really nice way to say it. Yes.
And there's a lot of opportunity for us to learn from our recruiting brethren, right? I belong to like the SourceCon here in DC. Just signed up for the 12 days of sourcing from Recruiting Daily. These are non-healthcare recruiters, but boy, they know how to go out and find the purple squirrels of the world, right?
So they really do.
Yeah.
You brought up so many amazing topics to talk about. First, I wanted to say it's really great that you have a more family feel at your hospital, because you are in such a large urban center of the United States. And you find that more like very close-knit feel, I think a lot more in your rural areas where you, like you said, you're the only hospital. But what a cool way to work in a place that you can like attest to. We are in between 2 other giant hospitals, and we bring people in who want to work here because we are a facility of choice for a lot of people. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And you said it. I didn't. No, I'm just kidding. Healthcare does seem to lag in the more administrative functions. So it's always been strange to me that healthcare, you will take massive risks, right? Well, I guess risk assessments. Always so forward thinking in the technology and in the treatment of healthcare and health issues, and on the medical side. But on the more administrative side, I think that healthcare organizations are a lot more conservative in how they spend money in moving forward. They are, in my experience, healthcare organizations do lag behind a little bit in
the infrastructure of it. The piece that, I'm going to borrow or beg and steal it from, I don't know if it's Office Depot or Staples, but the easy button, right?
Oh, okay. Right.
We don't make it easy. And we're working on that. And actually I've been part of some amazing teams within the hospital's recruitment system. We partner with our HRIS folks at trying to get that easy button.
That's wonderful, because there's a lot of hospitals that I feel, when I do some consulting with them, they're just really behind in like just basic technology that could make their recruitment or their TA process so much
Oh
easier.
yeah.
But there's
Like applying with your phone.
right. Right. And you and I think we met at the ASHRA conference in
We did.
Chicago. Is that right?
Yep.
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 Okay. And Rollis and I, this was 2 years ago. We were,
Yep.
you know, teaching other people at ASHRA how to create video jobs for their clinical positions or any position within their hospital. And you were literally the only person in the room that had any experience with this.
I was
I
also
know.
taking furious notes from what you guys were doing.
But I mean, I think it speaks volumes to your commitment to always moving forward. And people were looking at you like, what? How do you know how to do this? This is brand new to all of us. And you were the only other person in the room that said, yes, we're doing this because it works. We have to show our candidates not just, a job description. We have to show them what it's like to work in our hospital because we have to compete. So
Well, I have to share with you. So talk about, like the use of video. Oh, there's the easy button.
we'll always put that up there, I bet.
Love that.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
So I had an ICU candidate, night shift, trained, open heart, like
the holy grail of a
manna from heaven coming down, and he applied for one of my positions. He applied for probably 2 other positions within sister Hopkins hospitals.
Okay.
I'm sure he applied all over the place. So I happened to be in a meeting when I saw his application, and I'm like, well, I got to pay attention to this meeting, but I used my video interview stream scheduler.
Uh-huh.
So I literally sent him an email and I texted it to him. Basically, it's like, click this link here. When they click the link via email, they actually get the video of me saying, hi, welcome to Suburban. Thanks for your interest. And so he saw that, he clicked on it. I had a call with him that afternoon. What's interesting is one of my sister recruiters from one of our other Hopkins hospitals called later that day, like probably within an hour. But he was so sweet. He goes, well, Theresa reached out to me first. So I'm going to talk to her. And of course, that position was in Baltimore. He was kind of more interested in Virginia. But the fact is, he heard from me within minutes of applying.
That makes a difference, a huge
And
difference.
it wasn't even me talking to him. So I used the technology. Mm-hmm. He got to see a video of me, friendly, smiling, warm face. Welcome so much. Pick a time that works for both of us. He picked a time, we talked. And he just came through, I think it was on Friday, to do his new hire paperwork. So
congratulations, that's amazing.
And I guarantee you, I'm taking him for coffee and we're going to talk about our employee referral program. And if I could get 5 more like him, there you go.
You know what, this is something that I would do if I were in your shoes. I would ask him to do a video, just like on his phone or in your office, whatever, just how his recruiting experience was and why he chose Suburban, because then you can put that in your new posts for your new,
Writing that down.
I think that you have such an awesome opportunity where you're at. You have a lot of authority in making decisions, and you've been one of the few people in healthcare that I'm familiar with that is so forward thinking in how to engage with these candidates. And that's a perfect example. You had the perfect candidate. And because you had the technology set up in place, you were in a meeting, sent him a text, he saw your face, even though it was a video, and it had like the quick apply or the calendar integration already set up. So he picked a time. Now, what system do you use to do that?
It's called Interview Stream. It used to be called Lives. They changed to video or Interview Stream, and we use the one-way video interview tool, and then we use the calendar integrator.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's a lot of great tools out there right now.
I've spoken to some people. They're so funny. They're like, oh, so basically the candidates can schedule their own interviews with the managers. Yep. Actually, no, I don't use it that way. And people kind of look at me like, well, why not? And I'm like, well, here's what I think is funny. You're on the phone with a candidate. You have a candidate, number one, in these days. You're
right. You're so lucky.
You have a candidate, you're on the phone with them, you've talked to them about everything you should talk about, and then you hang up and tell them you're going to send them a link to schedule them. I mean, by the time they hang up with me, we've gone over our Maslow's hierarchy of needs conversation: food, water, shelter. How much are we going to pay them? If they ask questions about benefits, I'm going to answer those. I do a little mini interview. I talk
Right.
about, we check references. We use a tool called Skill Survey. I tell them we're going to check references on the front end. It's electronic. We're going to do it on the front end. I basically seal the deal. They haven't even interviewed yet. And then I schedule them before I hang up. And then I send them a confirmation email with everything that we talked about. But it's like, I guess I just don't understand the fragmented thinking that people have about, well, recruiters shouldn't be doing administrative tasks like scheduling interviews. I'm like, I'm already on the phone with them.
Right.
Why wouldn't I?
But you got on the phone with with these people because you have a candidate facing, like, extremely extremely user friendly system and process to use.
Yeah.
So they're getting on the phone with you before another organization's even calling them or even responding to their email or their application.
Yeah.
So I can see why, yeah, they don't schedule directly with the hiring manager, but they do schedule directly with you, right? With the
Yeah, for the hiring manager, but through me. But it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I will tell you, it's really rough out there right now.
I know, it's so hard.
Recruitment and respiratory therapy related to COVID. The travel agencies, we can't compete. We can't,
No.
you know, we actually just had it was in Washington Business Insider, 4 presidents of the local hospital associations, ANOVA, our Johns Hopkins, Washington Hospital Center, and I believe University of Maryland. They said, you know, where we were paying $40 for a nurse an hour before average, now we're paying $150.
Yep.
To $200 for a nurse.
Well, did you see the Kaiser news last week? There's places in North Dakota and South Dakota paying $10,000 a week, and there's nurses leaving their regular positions to go take those roles.
And that's what we're finding, is that people are like, even as I'm cold calling and sourcing, and I'm not afraid to pick up the phone and call somebody and say, hey, we've got this great opportunity. They're like, you know, do you have a travel assignment I could take?
No, okay, I want to get back to that. Because I have some questions about that, but there's a bunch of people that have logged in that have said where they're from. So welcome, Jamie Hartman from St. Louis. Thank you for tuning in today. If you have any questions for us, please let us know. Noelle logged in. Let me see. We have Ormani or I don't know how to say her name, but she's logging in from Florida. Thank you so much for joining us. If you could give me a phonetic spelling, I will say it correct, I promise. Thank you guys. And we have a couple of nurse directors on. So we have a really great audience right now, and they're very engaged. And thank you to our executive producer, Joe, she's keeping the conversation going in there. So I want to ask you about this because you just brought it up. Do you think the nursing function in organizations and how we recruit nurses is going to change in the coming years because of what we've seen with COVID and how nurses are moving around and doing the travel assignments? Or are we going to stay in the same, you stay at a hospital for a long time?
I don't know who does that anymore. We do, though. I shouldn't say that.
Right.
The things I love about Suburban is we have very stable nursing leadership.
Okay.
Which is key for nurses and engagement, right? So that's important. I'll give you an example to answer that question. So we cannot compete with $200 an hour, $185 an hour. And the interesting thing with travel nurses is they actually don't get paid that. But like you mentioned, $5,000, $10,000 a week, a lot of that is what they call a stipend that the travel agencies will pay them, and it's tax-free. Their taxable income might be $20 an hour, but it's their stipend. So they're making all of this money.
So it's very lucrative for a short period of time.
And if they're going to make a change, they're going to probably go do a travel assignment before they come to us. Then they'll come to us, or we've got a lot of travelers coming through right now to help us take care of patients. And this is the, I guess, the light at the end of a very dark tunnel of this pandemic, is that maybe we'll convert some of them to regular positions.
That's exciting news.
Yeah, so we being our sister hospital in DC, so we're called the North Capital Region. So here's how I think things are going to change. This is to answer your question.
Okay.
So other healthcare systems that are smaller in geography, I can think of like Sharp does this down in San Diego. They have regional health, they have float pools. and you get a much higher level of pay, but you're expected sometimes on a daily basis to float to like 5 different hospitals within your system. And you have to have the skill set that matches the ability to float to all of these positions. So we just created 2, a critical care and then a med-surg float pool just for the North Capital region. It doesn't make any sense for us to create a float pool in Baltimore because that's a long drive. That's a long drive in miles, let alone traffic. So we're focusing on our region, and we're paying some premium dollars for this float pool for either critical care or med-surg. And we're doing it related to COVID. So it's a higher premium, it's a short-term contract, but we're watching this, right? And how we're rolling it out and what does this look like? And in the future, this may turn into a permanent addition to our staffing model. So we actually have a float pool that can float between the 2 hospitals that are 4 miles apart.
That's a brilliant idea. How creative. I mean, I know a lot of hospitals or in larger systems, they have a float pool for their own organization, you know, especially, so I'm here in Houston, and you'll have one large system that has maybe 5 locations around the Houston area, and they have their own float pool. And, you know, it's crazy right now, nurse recruiting, for anybody that's watching, that's not in healthcare recruiting. If you're just a normal, any other industry recruiting, nurse recruiting is so difficult right now. But that's a really interesting concept where basically you have a consortium of hospitals in
Well,
the area.
there are 2 hospitals, it's just 2, and it's just
Okay.
ours. So they're within the Hopkins family.
Okay.
Within the Hopkins family, but it wouldn't put it past me if we did something larger. I mean, we're what do they say? Stealing from Peter to pay Paul.
I know. That's what it feels like right now.
Nurses are leaving the hospital down the street to take a travel contract with us, and they've really left home. They're just taking a travel contract with us.
Yep.
So it's a dog eat dog, very competitive world. The applicant pool, I think it's funny, NAHCR, the other thing I like about the National Association of Healthcare Recruiting is we have a listserv. So we'll get these emails that will spiral, crazy spirals of emails about, is anybody seeing a decrease in candidate pools for respiratory therapists and ICU nurses and floor nurses? We're like, yes, yes, and yes. Of course.
Yes.
And then you hear the travel agency side of things. Of course, you know, we're all kind of secret shoppers to the travel agency. They've got like 30,000 openings.
I know. I've been talking with some traveler organizations lately, and just they feel those urgent needs, but they want to have a partnership with an organization like I work for those long-term needs. And
Yep.
it makes so much sense to do both. And I think that all organizations are going to have some type of mix in the future of maybe traveling will become more common now that it's become such a prevalent thing this year. But I think that people might be a little bit disillusioned when they realize that they're not always going to get those massive paychecks, that's just a function of the current situation.
Yeah, people are, and I just recently hired a gal who was at a hospital in Washington, D.C., which will remain anonymous. She was so disillusioned with her work over the last few years, and especially in the last 6 months in the ICU that she's been in, constant turnover in leadership. She felt like the nursing ratios were getting beyond what she would consider safe. And she's only been a nurse for 3 years. So she's kind of very conscientious about her license, as all of us would be. And, she's going to take probably a 26-week contract with us for this float pool. But I think at the end of the 26 weeks, she will find a home in one of our 2 hospitals, and she'll probably sign on for a permanent position with us.
Well, that's exciting. And that's an interesting way for that nurse to see more departments. And is it interdepartmental, or is it only, like you said, for the respiratory and for ICU?
For the nursing, it's like ICU or the medical floors, right? So it's like you're going to be running all over the place, but it's,
it's tough right now.
It is so tough. And that way, that's what makes the candidate experience even more important, because if they happen to apply for a regular position that's posted out there, and you're trying, we're doing Indeed hiring events, we've got our little chat bot that we partner with Paradox. We have our little chat bot out there talking to people. We're doing everything we can to connect the dots to find the candidates. I use a tool called Seek Out, which is a sourcing tool.
Yep, I've heard of them.
Love Seek Out.
Okay.
I'm getting the same response, basically. It's like, yeah, do you have any traveler openings? Maybe I'll come to a travel assignment. And I'm like, no, I want you for a regular position. So we don't need the travelers, but
Right.
it's not happening.
And because the travelers are so expensive for your organization, I mean, it just
Right.
blows your budget away. That's for sure. So
it's blown.
clearly it's been an extremely stressful year in healthcare recruiting, especially for nurses. What do you do to relax after like a really difficult day or a tough week? Tell me about like what you do in your life to relax.
Hang on.
Do you ever relax? First of all,
one of my coordinators got me this. Okay.
Okay. Oh, you're a wine drinker. Okay. I can relate. We're all adults here. I'm a big
I will say this. Every morning I'm up at 5 a.m. and I walk 4 miles.
Wow. Have you always done that? Is that like part of your military training?
I used to run.
Okay.
I had foot surgery, so now I walk.
And do you think that comes from your military background of like being very regimented?
The discipline comes because my husband laughs at me. He goes, "You're so disciplined." And I'm like, yes.
That's incredible. So do any of
when I was 17, I mean, I needed the discipline back then and now it serves its purpose. But that morning walk, especially now because we have a mask rule in Montgomery County where I live, that even if you're outside, you still need to wear a mask.
Okay.
So I bring my mask.
I live in Montgomery County, Texas.
Oh, there you go.
So we're the same.
So I bring my mask with me and I kind of keep it down here as I'm walking. But then the minute I don't see anybody at 5 a.m. at all. But if I do,
that's a perk to walking at 5 a.m. is
perk to walking at 5 a.m. Fresh air, you're alone. And I've, my new iPhone, I'm taking all these beautiful nighttime portraits and pictures and it is peaceful to me. But yes, at the end of the day, there is some wine.
Okay, so I love that. So you do morning walk every day. That is impressive. Dedication for sure. And then you have a glass of wine at night. We'll just say one. What does everybody else do? I want to know in the comments. Let me know what you guys do to relax because it has been a really tough year. I can't believe it's December. It feels like the middle of the year just all of a sudden disappeared and we were at quarantine, the first, shutdown, and now we're at the end of the year and it's a blur and it's crazy to think about everything that's happened. And I think that there's a lot more people focusing, and I hope they are, on their own mental health and their self-care because it's so important. And I know that a lot of healthcare organizations are also focusing on healthcare for their employees. And
we opened up a resiliency center here at Suburban. Okay. Amazing. People
all right.
Come and it's funny. I was downstairs talking to our director of pastoral spiritual care, and we have a beautiful little chapel. And it was lunchtime, and I didn't realize it was lunchtime that I was talking to him. And I must have seen 4 people in and out of the chapel, just going in, shutting the door, kind of.
A place to recharge and take that pause.
Just kind of whatever they need to do. I mean, that's just it. So, and the other thing you mentioned, so I like to read as well. So not only a book club, but I've been reading presidential biographies lately for some reason. I don't know why, but I think it's.
Tell me more about this.
Well, I think it started because our book club, we were reading Becoming Michelle Obama.
I loved that book. Oh my God.
And so I read it.
Oh my God.
And then I thought, well, you know what? I should read the Laura Bush book because different from Texas. Okay. That's interesting. Here's this woman who, and you get to know people at such a granular level versus who they are and who the press presents them to be. Like I had no idea that Laura Bush was an inner city school teacher.
Yes. I read her book as well. That is.
So now I'm reading, so then I read Decision Points. Now I'm reading Audacity of Hope. So I'm just bouncing back and forth between the 2 previous administrations, just getting to know them better. So it's kind of interesting.
That's a really cool idea.
Yeah. And then in between murder mysteries and everything else, but it's hard to relax. And it's interesting because when you're in recruiting, or at least healthcare recruiting, my managers, directors, leadership, they don't stop. And it's o'clock at night when they're responding to either texts or emails. So sometimes at 10 o'clock at night before I go to bed, I might be laying in bed and I might be flipping through my emails just to make sure that I'm hearing what they have to say, because I know they're online, I can communicate with them. You do what you have to do. I mean,
Now that's interesting. So I think I wanted to ask you about like any misconceptions that people have about your job as a recruiter or in talent acquisition, because that is something that I don't think a lot of people realize about recruiting is we work very strange hours at times. And I kind of sometimes feel like I'm always on.
yeah.
And how have you, so tell me about what you do to turn off sometimes, and then any misconceptions that you want to clear up about what it is to be in healthcare TA.
So I think the differentiator too is how passionate you are about your job. And I will say there are people that are probably more passionate than me. Maybe, maybe not. There are people just as passionate about me. But then I also see some people who I'm glad to say are my competitors, not necessarily even locally, but just over the years, that are kind of Monday through Friday. And they're going to do what they're going to do and they're going to walk away. And I don't know if that's the impression that people get, like it's a Monday through Friday HR job. When the fact of the matter is, it's a constant engagement. Healthcare is 24/7. And if you're not 24/7, sometimes you're going to miss out. Before the technology, I mean, I used to sit on a Sunday afternoon and go through applications
Oh,
that
wow.
I applied when I was out in Washington State. And I hired this amazing critical care director. She'd just relocated to the area. And I know she applied to probably 20 hospitals, but I called her on a Sunday afternoon from my personal cell phone. And she was like, who's calling me? And we're actually still friends now. And this has been, many, many years ago. But it's understanding that if you're hiring for night shift, that you're not going to get somebody at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They're asleep.
Right. They're sleeping. Right. You
Leave
have
them alone. And that's why, like, for us, when we're calling people, we script our messages. Hey, you're probably sleeping because you applied for my night shift role. That's when I tell them I'm going to text you a link. When you wake up, click on it, pick a time that works for you. Maybe you're having a cup of coffee. We'll talk then. So
wow,
it's,
what a simple thing to do, but like so thoughtful. That is
well, I mean, I used to work nights. I get it. And
okay.
it's understanding as a healthcare recruiter that, your leadership in the middle of a crisis, especially, I tease my director a lot, my critical care director. She goes, Theresa, I got your 5 text messages. I was busy standing up a COVID unit. I'm like, is that all?
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you just saving people's lives? Okay. Well, I have more people for you to hire.
But
I
she
get that.
also knows that my little personality is I send you the calendar notice, then I'm going to send you a text to check your calendars, because she doesn't look at her phone when she's in the middle of standing up a COVID unit.
Right.
Or to miss the interview. So it's like being able to, and I don't do that randomly with every manager. That comes from a really successful intake.
I think you're right there.
The partnership you have with your hiring managers isn't because you're amazing or they're amazing. It's because you're communicating with each other.
And that communication style might not work for everyone, but you clearly have a good relationship with that individual that you're able to do that. Because I'm thinking of some hiring managers that I've worked with in the past that probably would have reamed me up one side and down the other if I would have been texting them on a weekend. But then there's others who, like you said, I have great personal relationships with, and we text all the time. And I will tell you that our outcomes are so much better. They're so much more positive because I can text them on a weekend or say, hey, did you check this? And it's not that intrusion that
right.
other.
I will tell you, I think the only time I've ever I answered the phone once, because it's kind of weird. It was a director that I'm not used to working with. And I literally, bubble bath, glass of wine, my Kindle book. I'm as happy as could be. And I'm getting a phone call and I'm like, you have 9 o'clock at night. You have got to be kidding me. And I said,
You answered?
I'll answer the phone today. This is it. That's it. No more. And she just needed to unload a bunch of things. But then I realized something. This is a woman who was probably at work at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
O'clock at night was still working. So
Okay.
I'm sorry I was in the bath. I was in a better mood because I was drinking the wine. But it's like, you know what? We have to meet these people where they are. And right now, if we're stressed as recruiters, as the people that are delivering care at the bedside, their stress level is 100-fold.
That's
And
a great point.
I would challenge anybody in chat to tell me if your hospital's fully staffed right now.
Right. Well, we have some people that have responded in the chat. So when we asked about what people do to relax, Joe said
Oh,
that
yeah.
she saw a quote today. Every night I don't drink wine during the pandemic feels like just ordering a salad at a steakhouse. I kind of agree. This year has been weird for sure. We have, so Noelle said that with it being cold, she starts her fireplace almost every night and it's calming to watch and feel the warmth. I agree. That would be amazing. It's not cold where I live right now. So, um, Om- Amrani says that she loves music therapy and
Oh, yes.
that is a great idea. That is wonderful because it is hard to relax and it is hard to step away and it's hard to make that barrier between work and life. And right in this year, especially, I work at home and I live at work and it's really confusing, like do I close my
And
office door?
that would be hard. I'm lucky that I come to work to
Right,
the
you go to the office still, which
very lucky. But I will it's funny, you were talking about music therapy. So I have a brand new Mini Cooper Countryman.
okay.
And if anybody's a Mini fan, it's in British Racing Green. BRG4 is the color. Green and white stripes, super slick. So I'm listening to my Bing Crosby and the Andrews Sisters White Christmas album on the way to work because I stream it, right? And I literally hope there are no policemen out there like, let's pull her over. I mean, I have so much fun weaving in and out of traffic driving.
So like, and that's something that's relaxing for you. A lot of people love driving. I do not miss my commute at all. And I don't.
My Bing Crosby big band, Santa Claus is coming to, and I'm just like.
That sounds delightful. What a great idea. So, okay. So we've talked a lot about how difficult recruiting is. And I wanted to ask you a couple of fun questions. Like, what do you plan to do when you retire? Are you ever going to retire? Well, because you've already retired once, right? From the Air Force Reserve.
Well, I was part-time when I retired from there. I was Guard and Reserve. So I have 5 years to collect.
Count, right?
5 years, not that anybody's counting. No, it's funny. I was just literally talking to somebody about, have you ever thought about joining the other side and becoming like an executive search recruiter or something like that, consultant. And I said, that sounds lovely, but no. When I retire, my husband works for the EPA. We're hoping he's going to get an opportunity to do an assignment with, it's called the OECD, the Organization of Economic Development. They're based in Paris, France. I want him to go there so I can finish learning all about my French, but I'm working on, I just got my Wine Spirit Education Trust level 2.
Okay.
So the goal is to get my level 3, which is very difficult. So it's called WASET level 3. And then I want to be the person who's working in a winery. And if it's not in Paris, if that doesn't work out, we have a house in Walla Walla, Washington, which is a huge wine area east of the Cascades. So it's drier. And Drew Bledsoe, former Patriot quarterback, is there. And he's got actually now 2 wineries there. And I would love to work like in a vineyard and be in the room selling wine.
You are amazing and I love your life. I feel like you need to start a blog about all these. That's an amazing what you want to do. I mean, first of all, live in Paris, work in a winery. Yes, to all of those things. I will visit. How about that?
Welcome.
That's funny. I don't know if I've told the audience that for my shows, but my partner works in oil and gas, and we are actually relocating for an expat assignment to Trinidad and Tobago. Yeah, we were supposed to be gone. We actually went down there this January before COVID happened. And we were there for a month. We found a house, starting to get everything lined up, all new furniture, the moving company came, everything. And then all of a sudden, we were supposed to be there in April. So of course, as you know, that didn't happen. But yeah, and we're still planning on moving. We just so we're going to do it. And I actually was an expat in my previous career for an oil company in Argentina. So if you haven't been to Argentina for the wine, you need to go.
I've been to Chile,
Okay.
through the military, actually. I was in Concepcion,
Oh,
Santiago, and it was amazing. Yeah. I love
that's amazing.
Yeah,
Yes.
but if he can do the Paris thing, I want to be the American who speaks so French, but is selling, wine to the American.
Cool.
But
Yes,
of course,
just a little
bien
bit.
sûr.
I started doing French on Duolingo, but it's terrible. I am not very good at all.
I have an unlimited Rosetta Stone, so whatever language I want.
Okay. Yeah, I started studying French when I was really young, and I just I speak Spanish, but French is just really difficult for me. I can read it pretty well, but the pronunciation just it doesn't I just don't get it. But so back to about recruiting and talent acquisition. So it's really rare in my industry or what I've seen in the industry to have an actual RN be an RN and healthcare recruiter. And I feel like there's got to be something in your experience that pushed you, like what pushed you to change from bedside to recruiting?
So bedside, I've never been a traditional bedside nurse. I was like
Okay.
CU nurse, but then I went and did hospice nursing in people's homes,
Oh, okay.
care. I did education, like staff development. But then I ended up working for a biotech company. So I was a clinical nurse consultant, AKA I was in sales, but I just had the nurse title, right? That went with it. And I was really good at selling. Really
Okay.
good at selling. I could even sell nursing to my patients when I was a home care nurse, like the diabetic patient who, doesn't eat anything less than 24 ounces of meat a day and he can't figure out why his wounds won't heal. Well, your blood sugars are 900. That's right. So, there's a certain amount of convincing of things that you have to do as a nurse. You have to teach people, you have to educate people. Sometimes you're selling them on a concept, right? So that sales concept has always been with me. I have a personality that is very out there. But
It's wonderful.
I was working for this pharmaceutical company. We had just gone through a massive layoff and I already had another job lined up. Like I was ready. Of course I was. If I'm doing my hair 5 months ahead of time, of course I already had another job ready. And I happened to be looking at one of these back in the day, 2005, nurse.com or Nurse Weekly, Nurse Week magazine. And they had this opening for a nurse recruiter at the hospital that was a half a mile from my house.
Oh, wow.
And I said, oh, I can do that. So I applied. And what's funny is the HR person who was recruiting for HR, which is where this position was located, wouldn't look at my application and forward it on to the manager of recruiting because
You were an RN?
I didn't have a BSN. I had a BA. I had an RN, ADN with a BA because that was on the job description, BSN. And I didn't have any HR experience. So the recruitment manager was getting a little frustrated with this HR recruiter.
Right.
And let me see the last 10 people that applied. And she pulled out my resume and she's like, hello, pharmaceutical sales, nurse, military, hello, why aren't we interviewing her? Well, she doesn't meet the minimum criteria for the job. So Libby is her name. She rewrote the job description. They brought me in.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Up and down all over the place. And then that was my intro to recruiting. And I mean, literally, she's like, we'll teach you the HR stuff. Like, you know how to connect with people, you know how to develop relationships. And I think because my father was military and I was military, I've lived in so many places that I could pretty much connect with anybody I meet about something.
Well, that's a really interesting concept that you're talking about. And I've seen that a little bit more about doing more of a job match. There's some new technology out there. I think it's like eightfold.io. There's a couple others that are doing it. But basically, when you go to their website, you don't apply for a job per se. You
Right.
put in you put in your resume and it uploads it and it, does an analysis through AI. But basically, it matches you based on your experience. Because, like you said, I mean, you had this amazing experience, and just
Right.
because you didn't tick the specific box, like, oh, it was a BA instead of an MSN, like any logical person looking at that would say, oh, that's okay. This person
Right.
clearly meets and exceeds the expectations, but we get so hung up on those requirements and
Yes. Yeah.
it's
And
really
it's
frustrating.
It's interesting to me. I read an article, it was probably in some recruitment article function format that came across my email, was that men will apply to a job even if they only meet 50% of the criteria for
Yep.
women. Typically, unless they meet 95% of the criteria, they won't apply. And I was just like, hey, I can do this. And I mean, it launched a career for me, which, like I said, the best of both worlds. I hire people that take amazing care of patients. So my reach is tenfold, 100-fold over the years. And I found my niche. I mean, there's no, pharmaceutical sales reports that come out on a Saturday morning to stress you out.
Mhm.
And, yeah, my stress level's super high right now, but whose isn't in healthcare, the deliverers of care, the recruiters of care. There's a lot of nurses, I think, that intuitively would be amazing recruiters because they are good educators. They're good at talking people into things and understanding what their pain points are. Nurses, there are assessment skills. So when I'm with a candidate, I'm assessing them. What's their pain point? Because I could verbal vomit out a bunch of information, but what's in it for them? I call it, the WIFM, right? What's in it for me? What do you care about, right? So if I see somebody might be of that age based upon how many years they've been a nurse, they might have high school kids, I'll start talking about our dependent tuition benefit. If they're young enough where they're getting their BSN, I'll talk about our scholarship program. But then I'll ask them, I could babble on all day long outside of pay, what's important to you? And they appreciate the honesty, cut to the chase. I'm not just babbling on information, but I think that in that respect, nurses are, if they can tune in that way to the candidate, that they make really good recruiters because they're very good at doing the assessment of what's important.
Yeah, I think that you just made a great point. I think I'm going to start a whole arm of our agency of just actual RN recruiters, of RN recruiters. I think that's a great idea. And like you said, your piece about when you talked about that you have a recording or in the email that says, "Hey, you're probably sleeping right now because you applied for a night job." I'm not a nurse. I wouldn't have thought of that. I think
Right.
that I am empathizing with them, by like calling at a different time. But your level of intricate knowledge of what being a nurse is, I think makes you such an amazing recruiter. And I think that for everybody that's watching, I mean, quite a few people they just love you right now. And Noelle says that Theresa is literally you're her twin. I think it has to do with the wine, maybe, and the part about being a nurse. I know that for sure. But a lot of people, I think that your intuition and your knowledge level has clearly helped you become a great recruiter. But one thing I wanted to ask you about your team and your position, you're one recruiter. How have you helped, or what keys have you taught to your other recruiters or other people in your department
Sure.
that you can continue the process, not just you're the only one that does it?
Oh yeah, no. We act as one.
Okay.
It took me 6 months to gain some trust. That was the first thing, just to get to know everybody. I had immediate wins because I was very familiar with the applicant tracking system that we use because I had implemented it, literally had been on an implementation team at my previous healthcare system. So I was able to go in and say, we could work easier here. And we did. And then I aligned the way we recruit. So I had a recruiter who would just literally push applications to the manager and resumes. And I was like,
No filtering, no screening or anything.
yeah,
Just
like, I don't need you. If they met the minimum criteria, she'd send them to the manager. And I was like, I don't need you anymore. So if you want to keep your job, let's talk through this.
okay.
And then I found out like that was how she was taught. She didn't know any better. So she didn't have anybody to mentor her that way.
Interesting.
David, shout out to David, my other recruiter. He's actually a nurse recruiter who's not a nurse.
Uh-huh.
Amazing, because he gets the candidate experience. And Jaquista has turned into, like, my two recruiters. They're amazing. They're great recruiters, but we had to almost start from scratch. Like, okay, here,
Relearn how to recruit.
yes. Not learn how to recruit, but here are the expectations of the job. And the job is not you pushing resumes. I can have a secretary do that all day long. I don't even need a secretary. I could just shoot things
Right.
over.
We have technology that can just do that. We don't.
Exactly. So it's like I had to sell them on the idea that, this is best practice. Then and it's so funny. For those of you out there, I'll ask, how many of you actually write down your work instructions on how to do what you do? Because when I got here, I said, well, where are all your work instructions? They're like, we don't have any. And I was like, that will change. So I'm the queen of work instructions.
You mean like a process, like you document your process? Rawless is really big about that.
So I take snippets of exactly how to do something.
Okay.
We just launched an onboarding module within our applicant tracking system. And they gave us this beautiful guide, which is like 27 pages long and very confusing. So I took it and I literally spent like 2 hours and I created my own work instructions. And it's funny, I've shared this in the system now. Hopkins, people are like, Theresa, can you send me your work instructions?
Of how to use the system.
How to work through it, because it's pretty intricate. And it's like, how do I hand off as a recruiter to my coordinator? When's the right time? And yeah, so I am, Rawless would appreciate this. I am the queen of work instructions, because if I were to play the lottery and win, I want to be able to walk out knowing that somebody else could pick up that sheet of paper and do my job.
I love how you said that, because Rawless always says, if I was hit by a bus, who would be able to do this? Okay, I like that if I won the lottery and walked out of the office.
I don't want to get hit by a bus, Rawless.
Right, we've worked a lot on solidifying our TA process. And one thing that we realized in going back and going through the process, like I'm very good at the fine tuning the points and making sure that everything is correct. But we found a ton of redundancies and things that didn't make sense. Like, wait, why are we still doing this? And do we do this with every client, or do we do this on only certain positions? And it really helped us clarify our process and make it even better when we went back and started, actually creating a process, creating those standard operating procedures. And one thing we've done is we've started using video in that. So we actually video and use like a screen share kind of a program, and I'll show people, this is how I do this specific thing. And we've started, it's amazing. I use this system called Loom, Loom, and I make screenshot videos all the time of how do you use this system. And I make tutorials for my clients. If I can't schedule, their schedule is kind of difficult, and they'll say, hey, I'm having a ton of trouble with this technology. And I'll just walk through it, and send them the video link. Yeah. So, I mean, we've been able to do the same thing, but that is, I really like how innovative you are in that. And
we share screens with teams so we can ping me and I need help with this. And I'm like,
right.
Through it.
Noelle said sign her up for the nurse recruiting job for sure, for the RN recruiting. Oh, Joe said that Loom needs to start paying me. I agree. Loom, if you're out there, I will definitely take a cut if anybody buys it. No, it's actually a free service. You can use it for free. So I would highly recommend downloading it if you can and try to use that.
I have to tell you something. It's funny. My phone's buzzing, which is kind of funny. It's because I'm getting all of these LinkedIn connections. Can I share this with you?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Like a secret, but I'm willing to share it because why not? So
yeah, share your secrets.
When I first moved here 5 years ago, I was working for a different organization, and my whole job was creating a nurse residency program for new grads. So I created a LinkedIn new grad nurse residency group, a private group. I manage it, and it's grown now. And I invite, I don't even know what just happened there. I'm getting a COVID check because for whatever reason, it was giving me, Hopkins does these COVID checks. It was giving me a COVID check. So I invite healthcare recruiters, and I invite healthcare recruiters, and I invite new grad nurses because they're taught to create LinkedIn profiles.
Right. Okay.
At 2,700 members. Now, the one thing that I didn't do back then, but I've started every day. I do 95, I think is when LinkedIn will cut me off. I'm trying to figure out how to invite all of them. I am now connecting with every single one of those nursing students.
That's a brilliant idea. You're growing your network. Yes.
If you are a recruiter and you have a certain group of people and there may be students or whatever, get into it. So now I've got 2,700 healthcare recruiters that all recruit for NAHCR and nurses that I don't care if they're in California. My path may cross with them at some point in the future, and they're going to remember me because I'm helping connect them with their first job. That's my
I love that so much.
drop.
No, I mean, we can end there. You're totally right. That's a great idea. What a phenomenal way. I was actually going to ask you about, because I think you are a really great networker. I mean, I met you in person and you're such an authentic individual. And I love the way that you personally interconnect, but talking about the LinkedIn, you know, I'm involved in a lot of LinkedIn groups, and what a great way to create a pipeline, but in an authentic way, in a like, I don't need anything from you now, and you don't need anything from me now. I'm going to offer you this free information and education, but sometime in the future, if you're ever looking for a job, talk to me. And I
Right.
love that. It's you're a very forward thinking individual, and it's so refreshing to talk to somebody that you know is in the same industry. And I know that the people that are watching, most all of them are in healthcare TA or healthcare um, HR even. And I think that it's so different, like we talked about, from other industries. So before we wrap up for today, I mean, you have been phenomenal. I like have to have you back soon because I think there's so many more things we could talk about. You know, with the coming vaccine, how we're going to continue recruiting, standing up clinics, that kind of a thing. If someone is interested in working with you, learning more about NAHCR, getting information about your LinkedIn group, how should they reach you, and what would you want them to know?
Yeah, just tell me. I mean, I love connecting with folks. Just
Okay.
reach out. I mean, I'm there.
Okay. And then to end, so you said connect with you on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
All right. So, and then what advice do you have for any of the folks right now that are out there looking for jobs that might not be in the healthcare industry, but that are anybody that's looking for jobs? It's really difficult right now. And I just wanted from a professional recruiter,
Sure.
what advice do you have for those people?
Think about not the tasks that you do in your job, but think about what you've achieved and your accomplishments. So when you're trying to communicate to somebody your experience, people tend to get down into listing tasks. I did this, and this. It's like, you know what? The gig is up. We know that if you're in this job, these are the tasks that you do. Why not? What did you accomplish? Like, were you the person that the manager always picked to train other people? What does that tell us about you? So speak from the heart, write a cover letter, even though everybody hates writing cover letters. Speak from the heart. We do read them. And it's not just a healthcare job. I think recruiters do pay attention if you take the time, but it's also where you could fall down and list another company's name. So be careful with that. But honestly, I feel like if you focus on the things that you've accomplished and don't be afraid of the transferable skills that you have. And even if you've been a domestic engineer for the last 5 years, do you know what that is?
Yes, I know what that is, but right, it's if
Mom,
you've been at home,
stay-at-home
right?
mom or dad, stay-at-home mom or dad, do you not know how to multitask, manage people's schedules, and could you not make an amazing like administrative assistant? I mean, truly, of course you can.
Right.
So it's just thinking in terms of what you bring to the table, right?
Reframing the tasks.
Yes, I hired somebody as a nurse because they were a new nurse, but the reason why we hired her is that she was a Starbucks barista and she trained all the other baristas.
Starbucks baristas can do anything. I'm here to say it right now. They
Right?
are the absolute best at multitasking and always with a smile on their face.
The guest experience that they're taught at
Oh my
Starbucks
gosh, yes.
and the multitasking non-fit caramel laka that they do, right? They fill that with the no whip oat soy bisque, twisted green sugar, blue sugar.
Yes.
They could be a nurse.
Oh my gosh, you're so right. Okay, so last question. I know we're just about out of time, or we are already over time, but you mentioned the lottery, and this was one of my questions. What would you do if you won the lottery?
Oh, like a lot of money or just enough for me?
Like enough that you never have to work again if you didn't want to, like a
I
big
would donate
chunk of money.
at least half of it would go to I have particular charities. There's a charity here called the Wider Circle. It's about ending poverty.
Okay.
Not just throwing money at people, but it's like helping people get jobs and build careers and lives for themselves. So a wider circle. I would give money to my own hospital. I would give money to animals. My two nephews are trying to start a communal farm where they could teach people about working in food deserts and really sustainability, caring for the environment and caring for yourselves. those types of things. But I would definitely I would be learning at least 3 languages,
Yes.
working my way past my WSET level 3. I mean, I'd still want to keep, and I'd be spending every day with my mom. My mom moved down here from Maine in October. She lives in a senior apartment building across the street. So we'd be having a good old time together every day. And I'd be cooking every day.
You have been amazing. And everybody in the comments everybody loves you. They're just so impressed with, and all the little pieces of knowledge that you just dropped on all of us about recruiting and nurse recruiting and healthcare recruiting. You were unbelievably phenomenal today. I'm so happy to have you. So thank you so much. And if anybody wants to connect with Theresa, please go ahead and just add her on LinkedIn. She is a wealth of knowledge for real. And I definitely want to have you back in 2021. I wish you a wonderful end of the year. Thank you so very much.
Vaccines right around the corner.
And we can talk about that soon. I actually had a meeting last week with the board for the Houston Healthcare HR Association, and we started talking about what everybody's plans are for vaccines. You know, we have a lot of huge hospitals here, and they've all got different plans.
Houston Methodist, yep.
Oh yeah, you know Carlos, that's right. Well, thank you again so much. And I really, really appreciate having you today. Have a wonderful end of 2020.
Absolutely. Take care, guys. Be safe out. Wear a mask.
Yeah, wear a mask for sure. Thank you so much. And I'll see everybody next week on Talent Tuesday. All right, Theresa. So we just stay on for just a second while it catches up. How do you do all of the things you do? You are amazing. You're just so amazing.
It's fun. It's good.
Okay. So Wallace wants us to pose for a shot. So just look at the camera and smile. And just a couple, that's fine. No, I loved all of your points about everything.